You come in, please like the video as you come in. Second live for today. Earlier it was kind of laid back. These are more hot topics, trending topics. So thanks for tuning in to Let's Talk About It Media 21. Like, comment, and subscribe. Welcome to the page where we talk hot topics, trending topics, what's going on YouTube, Instagram, Twitter, whatever's trending in the news. We're going to get straight to the topics and what's going on. Allow me a few seconds to do my disclaimer. So come on in, like the videos you guys come in. There's a lot of stuff that's still going on, even though I thought I was just going to be able to relax and chill today. Nope. Okay. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Copyright disclaimer under Section 107 of the Copyright Act of 1976, allowance is made for fair use for purposes such as criticism, comments, news reporting, teaching, scholarships and research. Fair use is use permitted by copyright statute that might otherwise be infringing. All comments are alleged, in our opinion, and for entertainment purposes only. We're going to get to a few hot topics, trending topics. I'm wondering if I should start here or start somewhere else, but I think I'll just start here. So we can understand what's going on. And then it gives people a few minutes to come on in the room. But like the video as y'all come in, like the video as you come in by supporting the channel, like the video as before you even comment. But let's get straight to it. Like the video as you come in. And we're going to let her explain it first. Let me see.
The doors. The sergeants have been instructed not to allow me to leave until I have a permission slip. The speaker announced that those who had left the state for breaking quorum would be required to sign a permission slip agreeing to be released into the custody of DPS so that they can ensure the return of those members so that they can have a quorum on Wednesday to pass those racist maps. I refuse. I just refuse to sign this piece of paper. I'm not a criminal. I'm exercising my First Amendment right to resist in my speech. And so I refused to sign. And so I was told that I was going to have to stay here on the floor. They have locked the doors. The sergeants have been instructed not to allow me to leave until I have a permission slip. Now, since we started, I have been informed that I could go to my office. So I have authority to go to my office or back to the floor as long as I'm escorted by a sergeant, and DPS will be following me. The speaker announced that those who had left the state for breaking.
So that's her basically chilling and sleeping there. So let's get to the video.
The speaker announced that.
Like the video as y'all come in. Like the video as y'all come in.
Of Republicans' new congressional maps. One representative says she's now unable to leave the floor. State Representative Nicole Collier must remain in the state capitol after Republicans required Democrats that fled the state to sign off on a law enforcement escort in order to leave the capitol at all. She refused and spent the night on the House floor because of it. Joining us now from the floor of the Texas State Senate, State Representative Nicole Collier. Representative, thank you for joining us, and I recognize that because you're on the State House floor, the video might be a little fuzzy, but we're glad you were able to join us here. The other Democrats who fled the state with you signed a document saying that they would have a law enforcement escort until votes tomorrow. Why wouldn't you sign that?
Thanks for having me on, Allie. You know, I at the moment that the directive was issued, I felt like it was wrong. It's just wrong to require grown people to get a permission slip to roam about freely. So I resisted, I objected, and the only way I knew how, and that's to resist.
You've been there now almost 24 hours. You posted a photo of yourself trying to sleep at your desk. How long are you going to stay?
As long as it takes. I mean, you know, this is the fight that all of us have in resisting, you know, the end of our democracy, basically. I mean, if we continue to let them take our freedoms, we won't have any to protect. We won't have to defend. So we got to start, and we got to stop, and we got to push back.
When you talk about the pushback, this all comes after Democrats, including you, pushed back by leaving the state during the first special session to stop the Republican redistricting plan. What made Democrats decide to come back, and what was earned by slowing this process down, given that the maps are now on a glide path in this second session?
Sure. About 2 weeks ago, no one knew the word gerrymandering, but because of the work of the Texas House Democrats, gerrymandering is a household name. We have been able to stop this first special session, and now we'll continue to fight through a legal battle on the floor. But in that process, we have seen Governor Newsom take action in California to neutralize the maps that are being proposed in Texas. So they are fighting fire with fire. What's different now is that, typically they say, take that high road. Well, that high road has crumbled. We're on a dirt road, and we're going to meet them on that dirt road and get down and dirty just like they are. And so my fellow Democrats are ready to continue the fight with the grit that is necessary to challenge the oppressor.
And yet, these newly drawn congressional maps are most likely going to pass. So what are the next steps for you and your fellow Democrats? And, I'm struck by what one of our reporters who has been all over this story on the ground in Austin said earlier. He was talking about the palpable politics of this moment. And he said Republicans have really dropped the pretense here that this is about anything other than notching seats for Republicans. And they're doing so in midstream, basically, less than 18 months before the November midterm elections.
Absolutely. We have families in Hill Country, Texas, in the Hill Country who need relief from the tragic floods that happened on July 4th. They have made they're not hiding the fact that they don't care. In fact, they want to put this politics over the people that have been harmed by the tragedy of the floods. And they are ignoring the requests of the families who actually came to the Capitol and asked them and pleaded with them to provide relief. Instead, they want to feed their own political ambition and do what Trump has directed. And so I hope that other legislators would have...
Like the video. Thanks for being here, everyone.
...would find the courage to stand up and say no, and that they are going to represent the people that elected them to do their job.
Texas State Representative Nicole Collier, I'm glad you brought up the flood relief because that is another key piece of this special session. Thank you for coming on and talking about it all with us.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Like the video as you guys come in. Like the video. Thanks for being here. Thanks for liking and sharing. Yeah, it's crazy.
To leave, the speaker announced that those who had left the state for break of quorum would be required to sign a permission slip agreeing to be released into the custody of DPS so that they can ensure the return of those members so that they can have a quorum on Wednesday to pass those racist maps. I refuse. I just refuse to sign this piece of paper. I'm not a criminal. I'm exercising my First Amendment right to resist in my speech.
Thank you, Richard.
And so I refused to sign. And so I was told that I was going to have to stay here on the floor. They have locked the doors. The sergeants have been instructed not to allow me to leave until I have a permission slip. Now, since we started, I have been informed that I could go to my office. So I have authority to go to my office or back to the floor as long as I'm escorted by a sergeant, and DPS will be following me. The speaker announced that...
Literally, at her desk. Okay.
The speaker announced that...
Let's continue. Now, this is going on. You guys can see what it's saying, but I can't repeat it. You guys are seeing what's being said.
Terrorist and was working to...
I might even have to wait 9 minutes until that passes. That's serious. Let's continue. Hold on one second. We'll get to that.
She's watched the same thing that you watch and that I watch. I see things that you don't get to see, and it's horrible. But when she's got a great love of children, she has a wonderful son that she loves, probably more than anybody, including me. I hate to say it, but she loves her son. She loves children, and she hates to see something like this happening. And that goes for other wars too. First Lady felt very strongly. She's watched the same thing that you watch and that I watch. I see things that you don't get to see, and it's horrible. But when she's got a great love of children, she has a wonderful son that she loves, probably more than anybody, including me. I hate to say it, but she loves her son. She loves children, and she hates to She hates to see something like this happening. And that goes for other wars, too. First Lady.
So let's continue with the news. Like, comment, and share. Like, comment, and share.
Gavin Newsom in the United Socialist Utopia, California, where an illegal immigrant obtained. And welcome to Hannity, a historic day at the White House today. We'll get to that in a minute. Also tonight, D.C.'s federal crime crackdown, it is working big time, but across the country, more shame for Gavin Newsom in the United Socialist Utopia, California, where an illegal immigrant obtained a commercial's driver's license before killing 3 on a highway with his tractor trailer. We'll check in with DHS Secretary Kristi Noem will weigh in tonight. Also, James Comey has some thoughts, not on his atrocious behavior, but on being a weird Taylor Swiftie. Beyond bizarre. Take a look.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon.
And I go way back. I went to my first concert of hers 15 years ago. I've been to a second, and I have helped financially support the attendance of a lot of family members and others.
You are a very weird man. Anyway, coming up, we'll explore Mr. Higher Loyalty's pathetic fall from grace. But first tonight, huge historic news from the White House. Peace between Russia and Ukraine is now a real possibility. There's a lot of ground to cover. I don't want to be overly optimistic. We don't like to overpromise and underdeliver. But all of it thanks to President Trump. Unlike every other world leader, he was able to pull this off. Unlike every other world leader, he's willing to expend political capital. Now, pause for a moment and think about how historic this really is. On Friday, we were in Alaska. That's less than 3 days ago. President Trump was in Alaska meeting with Vladimir Putin. Putin hadn't been on U.S. soil in 10 years. And just 48 hours later, the commander-in-chief did something that no other president would even dream of or even be willing to take a risk on. Take a look at your screen. He got all major NATO leaders to drop everything they were doing, take a weekend transatlantic flight to Washington, D.C. for this huge meeting at the White House with the Ukrainian President Zelensky. Now, these world leaders are now all praising Trump's commitment to peace. Take a look.
Listing your house on the market isn't the
Like the
only
video,
way to
like the
sell
video.
your house.
Fair use reaction clip. Let's continue.
I really want to thank you, President of the United States, dear Donald, for the fact that you, as I said before, broke the deadlock, with President Putin by starting that dialogue. And I think it was in February that you had the first phone call. And from there, we are now where we are today. And that is, I think, if we play this well, we could end this.
I think it is an important day, a new phase. After 3 years and a half, that we didn't see any kind of sign from the Russian side that there was a willing for dialogue. So something is changing, something has changed thanks to you.
I think in the past 2 weeks, we've probably had more progress in ending this war than we have in the past 3.5 years. And I think the fact that we're around this table today is very much symbolic in the sense that it's Team Europe and Team United States helping Ukraine.
Now, remember, it was only Friday that Trump haters and the state-run legacy media mob, the Democratic Party, they were telling you, every American, that Trump's peace negotiations with Putin were an embarrassment, a failure. He got schooled. Now, Senator Chris Murphy calling the meeting a disaster for the war in Ukraine, an embarrassment for our country. You know, few thought that Donald Trump could pull it off. Here it is Monday. Look at all the people. They're all at the White House. Why were all of Europe's leaders at the White House praising President Trump in less than 3 short days? He's moving at the speed of Trump. Now, the left in this country has been rooting for Trump to fail on every front and for this horrible war to what? Continue? More dying, more death? As President Trump pointed out, he could negotiate a total unconditional surrender from Vladimir Putin, and we could get a Moscow and St. Petersburg and more, and the left would still be unhappy. Take a look.
I said that if in the settlement you got Moscow, St. Petersburg, and thousands of miles around them, they would say I made a bad deal. The level of hatred and animosity is incredible. Not with all. I mean, we have great people. We also have terrible people up there that I think are told what to say. But, you know, in solving all of these wars, they don't even write about it.
Now, let's temper expectations here. Make no mistake, there's still no guarantee that a peace deal is imminent or will even happen. But what we can report tonight is there are major territorial decisions to be made, including the Donetsk region. But everyone is on agreement on one key issue. They're all, you know, they all want the killing to stop. By the way, don't you? Don't you think it's time? How many more Russian soldiers need to die? How many more innocent men, women, and children in Ukraine have to die? Take a look.
We've had a very successful day thus far. Important discussions as we work to end the killing and stop the war in Ukraine. We're all working for the same goal. Very simple goal. We want to stop the killing, get this settled.
Now, for all you Trump derangement syndrome people out there, there's only one person in the free world that could get this done and get this close to a possibility of a lasting peace, and that's President Trump. He did force Vladimir Putin to the negotiating table. He used 4 very key measures, as I see it, to get that accomplished. He started selling the sophisticated U.S. weapons to NATO and Ukraine. In other words, okay, Vladimir, you don't want to play ball fast enough? Let me get your attention this way. Number 2, he signed that economic agreement, the trade agreement with the European Union that included nearly $1 trillion in guaranteed purchases of American energy. In other words, that's $1 trillion worth of oil and gas that will not be coming into Europe from Russia, funding Putin's war machine. Number 3, President Trump got NATO members to more than double their military commitment to 5% of their GDP. And number 4, he hit Putin where it hurts, implementing a massive tariff on India, 50% if they buy Russian oil. With those 4 steps and the threat of more tariffs to other countries that do business with Russia, those are the severe consequences President Trump was talking about. The president is working very fast to clean up what has been a disaster in Ukraine, of course, created by Western Europe themselves and by Joe Biden in particular. You know, Joe Biden never even picked up a phone when Vladimir Putin was amassing military equipment and troops at Ukraine's border, and it was going on for month after month. Many European countries continue to spend lavishly on Russian oil and gas, making Putin rich. In other words, funding his war machine, all while nixing their own power plants in the name of, quote, climate change, despite Trump's dire warning. Remember the white flag of surrender that he gave then German Chancellor Merkel? Europe even tried to lecture President Trump, you know, just before the meeting with Putin, about how he should negotiate. Their arrogance, appalling. None of them could accomplish what Donald Trump has accomplished to this point. At least we're talking. At least there's an opportunity. But now, because of President Trump, the sheer economic and military might of our country, the U.S., there is hopefully the chance of peace. And above all, the president has a commitment to peace, frankly, unlike anything we have seen. And the American people appreciate that. In fact, Trump's approval rating, look at this. Insider advantage. By the way, one of the few pollsters that gets Donald Trump and is able to poll Donald Trump correctly, showing Donald Trump's approval rating surging. This took place after the Alaska summit with voters 65, under 65. But this isn't peace at all costs. At the end of the day, if Vladimir Putin doesn't want a deal, President Trump is committed to breaking Russia's piggy bank with very aggressive, dire consequences and tariffs on anyone and everyone that buys Russian energy. And the U.S. Senate will help in that regard as well. Hey, Sean Hannity here.
Like the video as you guys come in. Like the video as you guys come in. Let's continue. Fair use, reaction clip. Yeah, allegedly this is a AI generated photo of Blueface. We're going to generally talk about it and we're going to get to more topics. This is AI generated. This is what he really looks like. Yeah, he's still bulked up, but they're saying it's AI generated. Well wishes to Blueface. Let's get to more hot trending topics. Let's go. Let's go. Like the video as y'all come in. Like the video as you come in. Give me a second. Like the video. Thanks for being here, everyone.
Is there anything in there, like let's just say I'm an interested buyer. I would be interested in buying the 100 hours that you have. I would be, but the 100 hours that you have, is there anything in there, like let's just say I'm an interested buyer. I would be interested in buying the 100 hours that you have. I would be interested in buying Bannon's 15, 16 hours that he has, right? I would be interested in both of them.
Let me just add about Bannon's, what the hours that Bannon has is that Bannon, I wouldn't buy them from Bannon if I were you, because Bannon does not own them.
Oh, who owns them? I didn't know that.
Yeah, Jeffrey Epstein paid for those tapes.
Wow. So the trust owns it.
Yes. Oh, yes. The estate owns it.
The state owns it. So wow. Okay. So that's a new fact. I didn't know the fact that that recording is not. So Bannon couldn't sell it if he tried. So if he wanted to do a documentary, he would never be able to use those hours in a documentary.
Yes, and again, let me stress that although Steve, who I am personally fond of, but Steve's cover here that he was making a documentary about Epstein is 100% not true. I know this because I was there, and I'm fully aware, and actually have it on tape of what transpired here, and that was Bannon's effort to help Epstein with his legal problems, and this would be in 2019 when the law was closing in on Epstein, and Bannon's suggestion was that Epstein go on national TV to try to perform a mea culpa, explain or humanize himself in some way, and then Bannon offered to help prepare him. So essentially what Bannon was doing was media training. He was tutoring Epstein in how to face a hostile interview on a hypothetical 60 minutes.
Got it. So more of a training, a PR, than anything else. So let's talk about your 100 hours that you have with them. How much information is in there that it's bombshell, earth-shattering type of information where the public should know about out of the 100 hours you have with them?
Well, it's a funny aspect of this, and people call me up now, people of significant standing, and say, is there on the tapes, does Epstein promise Trump young girls, or does Epstein promise banning young girls? It's that kind of thing, and I kind of say, I don't know, you've obviously never done interviews with people. I mean, when they ask that kind of thing, these conversations unfold over a long period, and these are conversations like life itself. Epstein is talking about his life. There's lots and lots of details. There's lots of information that would be surprising. I suppose there are, the Daily Mail could go through this and pull out 1,000 headlines that would seem headline worthy. When you listen to these tapes, or when you were present, as I was during these things, you don't have that feeling. You have the feeling that this is incredibly interesting, fascinating, and it exposes a life. So what you get is a life rather than headlines. Although, as I say, I'm sure you could go through this and pull out the sound bites, which would then add up to headlines.
Would the FBI or the DOJ benefit from having access to these 100 hours?
Well, benefit for what purpose? Since Jeffrey Epstein is already dead.
No, not necessarily. We know he's already dead. Just to gather more intel. Would the FBI or the DOJ, if they're trying to get to the bottom of this, would they?
Well, I think it's a question of what they're trying to get to the bottom of. If they are trying to get to the bottom of who Jeffrey Epstein was, about the real nature of Jeffrey Epstein's personality, about Jeffrey Epstein's not only his weaknesses but his strengths. If the FBI and the DOJ were biographers, as I am, they would find it interesting. Since they are not biographers, I think that they would probably be less interested. I am.
Like the video as you guys come in. Press 3 if you knew where you're watching from. Press 3 if you knew where you're watching from. Press 5 if you've been here before and where you're watching from. Thanks for tuning in. Let's continue. Fair use reaction clip.
The FBI's job, different than CIA. CIA is international, foreign. FBI is domestic. Their job is to make sure, families in America are going to be safe. Americans are going to be safe. So anybody that's tied to this, or to even eliminate or address a future next Epstein, it would probably benefit from studying the patterns of how this guy communicates. And if that's the case, has the FBI, has the Department of Justice, have they at all reached out to you since you've had these for 6 years, whether it's under Biden or Obama, or Biden or Trump, to say, hey, we think we need access to this recording that you have?
Hi, I'm
Like the video as you guys come in. Like the video as you guys come in. Thanks for being here. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Hi, I'm Sage Robbins.
Say, hey, Michael, we think access to this recording that you have.
No, they haven't, and they probably haven't for a lot of reasons. First, I'm a journalist and a writer, therefore that becomes a complicated thing. I mean, Epstein was a source for what I was doing, so I think that they understand the difficulties there. And then I also think they're probably unclear on they probably have no goals. There is probably no open investigation of Jeffrey Epstein, and of course, to what point he is dead. And there's no, to my knowledge, open investigation of anyone else involved with Jeffrey Epstein. Ghislaine is obviously has obviously been convicted. She's been convicted.
Right.
She's in jail and is now headed toward a pardon. So I don't think that there is any issue there. So again, crossing these disciplines of someone who has been interested in, someone has material that reflects the full life of this man, and then the FBI and the DOJ, who are not interested in the full life of this man. They're interested in only their highly segmented view of any given person.
Yeah, but not even a door knock, right? You've not even gotten a door knock on them. Hey, Michael, can we see this? You had nothing. No email, no door knock, no text, no phone call.
Nope.
Okay. And if you were to sell it to an interested party, what would be the range of your asking
Well,
price?
I probably wouldn't sell it. It's not for sale.
Oh, okay, so you're not selling it. I got it.
No, I'm not a. I'm a writer.
Okay,
So this is a story that I think is worth telling as a writer. It's a story that I mean, it's a pretty interesting story for me. So how I tell it and when I tell it, is a kind of an organic and natural process. But
I don't know why I got the impression that you were open to selling it, and you said some people reached out or they didn't, or you were surprised.
No. I mean, I have
Okay.
spoken to many outlets, and but it is about telling this story. It is not about. I would never sell this. I would never. This is an important aspect of being a writer and a journalist. This is my story.
Makes sense.
Not anyone else's story.
I respect it. Nowadays, more than ever, the brand you
Like
wear
the video,
reflects and
like the
represents
video.
who you are. So for us, if you wear
Fair use reaction clip. Let's continue. Like the videos, you guys come in.
Subpoena for documents related to convicted sex offender Jeffrey Epstein. The chairman of the congressional committee investigating Epstein's sex trafficking case now says he expects those records by Friday. Yesterday, former Attorney General Bill Barr testified behind closed doors as the first witness in the committee's investigation. Chairman Jim Comer says Barr testified, quote, he didn't know anything about a client list, and he had never seen anything that would implicate President Trump. Justice Department reporter Alex Nallin has more on that. So, Alex, what's the committee looking for in these documents?
Well, the committee says that its investigative purpose is based on improving how federal law enforcement investigates and prosecutes sexual or sex trafficking. And obviously, looking at the Epstein case, that is a good test case because of the myriad failures in how federal law enforcement investigated and prosecuted him. And obviously, he died by suicide in 2019 before he was able to stand trial for his crimes. Obviously, though, I think the thing that's overriding all of this is the outrage that we've seen from the MAGA base related to the Justice Department's botched handling of releasing the so-called Epstein promise that Attorney General Pam Bondi had early in her days as the Attorney General, promising transparency in all the files that DOJ had and FBI had related to its investigations of Epstein. So I think what the committee is trying to do is both kind of quietly urging the Justice Department to hand over and be transparent as it initially promised in those files, and also mounting its own investigation, trying to give out drafts from former attorneys general and other officials who may have been the Epstein federal investigations.
How critical is Bill Barr's testimony in this case?
Well, it's kind of unclear. I think that what we heard from the committee yesterday, Jim Comer, is he said that, basically what Attorney General Barr testified to is what is already kind of publicly known. He said that there was no evidence that he saw of any client list. He said that he saw no incriminating information related to President Trump or other high-profile individuals. He also, affirmed what he told the Associated Press back in 2019 following Jeffrey Epstein's suicide. They give no reason to doubt the idea that Jeffrey Epstein did commit suicide in his cell in Manhattan. And so this is kind of, again, all confirmation of what is publicly known. The committee is just kind of getting these closed-door depositions affirming what is already publicly known.
The committee has also subpoenaed the Clintons, former FBI directors James Comey and Robert Mueller, and several former attorneys general. What are you watching for as the investigation ramps up?
I think that what's going to be interesting, obviously, as they get more testimony from these former attorneys general, it's really not clear what they're going to get in the way of new information from these high-level officials. I think that what I'll be watching for is whether their testimony leads them to open up new lines of inquiry. It's really unclear, for instance, why they didn't subpoena former FBI Director Chris Wray among all the former attorneys general and former FBI directors that they did subpoena. It's also unclear why they didn't subpoena former Attorney General Gonzalez, who was actually the Attorney General at the time that Jeffrey Epstein inked his so-called sweetheart plea deal that allowed him to escape federal prosecution back in the 2000s. I think that really what we want to see is, and what people want answers for, is how law enforcement and federal law enforcement in particular failed to properly prosecute and pursue actual investigative leads when they were given so many tips and investigative leads from witnesses and other victims of Epstein. I think that is really going to be the key thing, and I think everybody is also going to want to know whether there's any information that leads down a path that the Justice Department says it's pursuing as to whether any high-profile individuals who knew of Jeffrey Epstein's crimes or his victims are going to be implicated. But I think that is, again, something that the Justice Department says is kind of a road that is not worth going down.
Justice Department.
Like the video, fair use reaction clip. Come on in, like the video as you guys come in. Thanks for tuning in.
were on display both yesterday at the White House, but definitely in his phone or on Fox News this morning.
Oh yes, Ali, certainly a very complex relationship. And look, this morning the Trump administration is actively working to hammer out those details of that meeting between President Putin and President Zelensky. Still, though, a lot of unanswered questions at this point. We don't have any potential time or location, although the president is indicating that he wants this meeting to happen soon. But at this point, Ali, look, the president, not always a very detail-oriented person. What he wants is he wants to be able to say that he is the person that got these two leaders in a room when his predecessor, President Biden, could not. And so that is what the administration is hanging its head on this morning. And yes, you're right. The president interviewed on Fox News earlier today talking about his relationship with Vladimir Putin. Let's listen to some of that.
YouTube Premium is
like the video, fair use reaction clip. Like the videos, you guys come in. Thank you.
Best friends have gotten along very well. And I called President Putin yesterday, and I do have a good relationship, but it only matters if we get things done. Otherwise, I don't care about the relationship. So we're setting up a meeting. I sort of set it up with Putin and Zelensky, and, they're the ones that have to call the shots.
So the president also saying that he called President Putin yesterday without the European leaders in the room as a sign of respect. Also, another point that I should mention, Ali, in that interview, President Trump also assuring that there would be no U.S. boots on the ground in Ukraine. That is significant because yesterday he was asked about this twice. He didn't say one way or the other, but he did rule out that there could be some sort of U.S. peacekeeping force in Ukraine. However, now it's clear that he anticipates that being something that the Europeans do and the U.S. just kind of hangs back or at least coordinates it out.
Yeah, it's actually a really important detail that the president filled in this morning, Gabe. Thank you for pointing that one out. But Joel, I think there's the bilateral of this between Zelensky and Putin. That, of course, carries a lot of risks, potentially a high reward, but I want you to get into that. And then the other piece of this is once you get through the bilateral, in theory, you're going to a trilateral where Trump is one of the arbiters in the room. But after you watched European leaders flood to the White House, in large part because I think they wanted to make sure they knew how Trump was maneuvering here, what does that say about the role that the U.S. can play once we get to, and if we get to, that trilateral point?
Yeah, Ali, you've laid it out exactly right. Look, yesterday was photo op diplomacy, and I fear it's flip-flop diplomacy. It seems like every day there's a different vision that President Trump wants to put out there, depending upon who he speaks with last. Today, Fox News, meaning, oh, no, I'm not going to put American troops at risk. Well, what's the point of security guarantees then? If you're Ukrainian, you hear that and you think Budapest Agreement, other past agreements that did not hold when Russia invaded. So the idea of putting these two men in the room, it's a photo op idea. We need a diplomatic end state, but if you don't bring Vladimir Putin to the table where he's truly ready to make concessions, it's a useless exercise, and in fact, it would set back a lot of the international work to try to stop this war.
I do think that's one of the pitfalls as we look ahead to this. And again, there's no clear timeline on when that tete-a-tete would actually happen. There's no firm location, though in an interview with Andrea Mitchell, one of the European leaders floated that maybe it could be Geneva. Again, getting ahead of where we actually are in terms of firm details. But Helene, one of the things that is being talked about right now is the role of a ceasefire. The Europeans haven't ruled it out. Trump is pushing ahead without it. But these next steps are going to take weeks of planning and coordination, and the killing will continue. So at what point do they face a fork in the road about Putin delaying consequences, Helene?
Well, that's the crux of this, Ali. I mean, just last night, Russia logged 270 drones and 10 missile attacks at Ukraine. The killing and the Russian attack in Ukraine could continue, and that's why everybody has been so focused on getting a ceasefire, and that's exactly why Russia doesn't want a ceasefire as well, because that turns it flips everything and takes it away from Vladimir Putin's favor. President Trump, before he went to Alaska to the summit, was pushing for a ceasefire. He saw Vladimir Putin in Alaska, and he dropped that. And you saw some of the European leaders, including Friedrich Merz of Germany yesterday, still sort of clinging on to the ceasefire hope. But President Trump appears to be sailing on without that. And that's if you are Ukraine, this is exactly where you don't want to be, because it's these cities and towns in Ukraine, particularly in eastern Ukraine, that are getting pummeled now, and it's Ukrainians who are dying, especially when President Trump has been so vague about the security that guarantees. And security that guarantees, I can't stress how important that is to all of this. If you're Ukraine, you want the security guarantees, but you want them backed up by the United States. And President Trump has been so vague about that. Everybody's clinging on to, he didn't rule out American troops. Well, now he has. He hasn't said what role the U.S. would have in this. And that, again, is sort of like where the rubber meets the road.
Yeah, that's also where the malleable posture, we'll say, I think really comes into play from the point of view of the White House. Helene, as you were talking, Joel was here nodding his head along, especially when you made the point about meeting with Putin and then the ceasefire falling off the table. So, Joel, I leave that to you.
Yeah, I mean, look, the president, he claims that he wants a ceasefire, then he doesn't. What got even Putin to the point of discussing this was the possibility of more sanctions. Now he doesn't want more sanctions, and there are 90 senators who have co-sponsored new sanctions legislation
You
to
never
place
get
on
that on the
Russia.
Hill anymore.
It's impossible to get 90 senators unified in one piece of legislation in the middle of a hot war, no less. So, the president's kind of a wet noodle right now. Like, he is trying to see what sticks. I think he saw, and we may have seen yesterday, that he knows the road to a Nobel Peace Prize goes through Europe, so he wants these European leaders on his side. And so we don't really have a clear vision on how to end this war, and the United States is not putting the kind of requisite pressure into the mix that we need to get Vladimir Putin to legitimately make concessions.
Yeah, I do think that there's a clarity from people like Macron about the consequences, whether they be primary sanctions, secondary sanctions on Russia if this deal does not come together. But Trump was asked multiple times yesterday, Gabe, about the prospect of would there be severe consequences still if ceasefires are not upheld and if Putin doesn't come to the table. So that's of it. But I think it also factors into what we've been talking about, a lot of made-for-TV moments, which means what comes with that is the potential for hot mic.
Please like the video. Please like the video. Thanks for being here, everyone. Please hit the like button. We're at 9 likes. Let's get the likes up. Please double tap the screen. Don't forget to subscribe, and thank you.
Moments, and that is exactly what happened yesterday when the president was speaking with French President Macron. Gabe, can you take us through that moment and why it matters so much, the way that Trump is talking about the Russian president here?
Yeah, certainly, Ali. And look, first of all, to your point on the president backing off these serious consequences for Russia, it was just a couple days ago, just less than a week ago, really, when he was directly asked that question. And even on Friday, en route to that summit in Alaska, saying you were very disappointed there wasn't a ceasefire just several days before here in Washington at the Kennedy Center, saying that there would be very serious consequences for Russia if there was no ceasefire. He seems to have completely backed off of that. But to your point on this hot mic moment, it happened yesterday. Let's take a listen to it. It's when the president was speaking with the French President Macron yesterday here at the White House. Let's listen to that first and talk on the other side.
I think he wants to make a deal. I think he wants to make a deal for me. You understand that? As crazy as it sounds.
And Ali, that's very significant. I think he wants to make a deal for me. There have been many national security analysts that look at that and say, look, Vladimir Putin wants to make a deal for himself, not for President Trump. But I think it's very interesting to see how the president is thinking about this, thinking that personal relationship with Vladimir Putin might eventually end up with the deal. Now, I will mention my colleague Kristen Welker. She did speak with Emmanuel Macron, got his reaction to that. The French president saying that he thinks it's great news that President Trump feels that he has the capacity to get this deal done, but also injecting some skepticism there and saying that any ceasefire deal or any peace deal would have to work for not just Ukraine, but also for Europe.
Skepticism from Macron, and he's outright called himself a pessimist in that interview with Welker. I think, Helene, one of the key pieces of whether the optimist or the pessimist will win the day actually come when it comes into the security guarantee issue. I want you to listen to what leaders were saying about the U.S. role yesterday, and we'll talk on the other side.
Like the video?
It's very important progress of the past few days that your president expressed the clear commitment of the U.S. to be part of the security guarantees. It's brand new.
That's 30 countries already working together on security guarantees. We'll now work with the U.S. on those guarantees, coordinating.
What we have agreed on is to work on European and American security guarantees, essentially, which will be secure from the European perspective, coordinated with the Americans.
What security guarantees do you need from President Trump to be able to make a deal? Is it American troops, intelligence, equipment? What is it? Everything's probably not on the table here, but we don't know what the U.S. role is actually going to look like, though we've heard the phrase Article 5-like protections. Why would Putin go along with any of that kind of arrangement, Helene? And ultimately, does it matter? Some European leaders have said, that's fine, Putin doesn't need to get on board with it, but he kind of does if you look at the way Trump's looking at this.
Look, one of the whole reasons why Putin went into Ukraine to begin with is he was getting tired of an encroaching NATO just getting too close to his borders. So you have to ask yourself, this question of why would Russia go along then with NATO troops inside Ukraine? That's a whole lot closer to the Russian border than they were before the war started. That said, that's kind of what Zelensky is looking for. There are ways around this problem. There are ways that the U.S. could join. You could put American troops in neighboring NATO countries that are close to the Ukraine border and then have European troops inside of Ukraine. This is not outside the will of diplomats to figure out a way out of this, but but when you ask yourself, why would Russia go along with this? What is Russia going to, because if you have the kind of security guarantees that Ukraine wants, it's hard to see how Vladimir could at any point sell this to his people as a win for Russia if you've got NATO troops that much closer to the Russian border. So I don't know. I'm not a diplomat.
Like the video. Like the video. Fair use reaction clip.
About the legality of this move. Does Trump have the authority to make sure that these folks who have been deployed into an American city are carry weapons.
2025
Yeah, of course he
IRS
does. I
tax
mean, the fact is that the National Guard is under his command, and they are allowed to carry weapons if they are directed to do so. What I think the big scandal here is that when the Army issued its press release last Thursday, okay, so just a few days ago, telling us that there was going to be the deployment in Washington, D.C. One of the ways they made this palatable to everyone, one of the ways that they kept, the temperature down was by saying that the guardsmen would not be carrying weapons. In fact, not only wouldn't they be carrying weapons, there wouldn't be weapons in their vehicles. The weapons would be only back at the, would be in the armory, right? They'd be back stored where they are normally kept. And now we get this news trickle out over the weekend, and here we are now, on Monday, and getting it, even more firmly that they will be carrying weapons. That it won't just be at the armory, it won't even just be in their cars, but they'll actually be physically carrying them. And, I'm going to sort of pick up where I oftentimes end, which is that the legacy media acts like this is somehow, a change of plan. And I'm like, but they lied. like, of course they were going to have these people have weapons. Like they said on Thursday in a press release, no weapons. They say over the weekend, they start to say there will be weapons. That isn't like some strategic change of plan. Right. They lied, and they lied for an obvious reason, which is that if they had led with weapons, there likely would have been a larger outrage. There may have been protests. And
right. They know they can, as long as they can slowly normalize, the folks who are in charge of getting the message out to this idea that it won't be such a big thing. It won't cause that much of a commotion, and the media falls for it hook, line, and sinker.
Yeah, and I feel like this is literally what we saw with LA. They federalized the National Guard, they deployed the National Guard, they got everyone really used to that. The next thing you know, they're Marines.
Right.
Right, which is like, just think about that. Active duty Marines in a major U.S. city.
Right, like people who are trained, they're trained killers. I mean, they are just trained
to
kill people. That's their job.
Yeah, and so this whole thing that Donald Trump has mastered of normalizing the completely abnormal, of getting people, boiling the frog, so to speak, getting people used to things, and then slowly but surely escalating it. It's playing out in Washington, D.C. right now. I mean, it is not just the weapons will now be carried by the National Guard. It was, they tried to replace the police chief, then that failed. But then no sooner did that fail than you see them having FBI agents and other federal law enforcement walking the streets as if they're police. Right. Some of them wearing vests that say police when they're not the police, and we saw a series of really, really heartbreaking videos this weekend of people being, thrown to the ground, being arrested, being dragged away, being put in unmarked cars, masked agents. I mean, this is the kind of stuff you are used to seeing in a totalitarian state. And watching as armed guardsmen.
Okay, let's move on. Okay, was there anything else I wanted to talk about? Let me see. Trying to see if there's anything else I wanted to talk about. People are talking about this. I'm not going to repeat what's being said because I don't want to strike on my channel. I have to be cautious. But that's definitely trending though. And we just talked about that. I think that was everything I wanted to talk about. Yeah. Yeah, you guys. Like I mentioned, I'm on vacation. So I'm just doing hot topics, trending topics. This is also trending. Unfortunately, this person over here is deceased. You guys can see what's being said. Mary Birmingham High School coach was taken out after allegedly being discovered in the home with another man's girl. That's sad. Got to be careful. Okay, you guys, I just wanted to do another video. I was live earlier. I'm trying to stay within the algorithm, so like the video as you guys come in. I did not go live over the weekend, and it's showing. We had a nice, relaxing weekend. Had a lot of great time with friends and family that Saturday and Sunday. So when I don't go live on the weekends, it shows. It shows. But that's okay. I'll keep going until, but I am on vacation this week, so I am trying to do videos to kind of stay within the algorithm. But I definitely thank everyone for being here. Thanks for supporting the channel. Like, comment, and subscribe. And everyone, have a great day. Goodbye. Oh, copyright disclaimer under Section 107 of the Copyright Act of 1976. Allowance is made for fair use. for purposes such as criticism, comments, news reporting, teaching, scholarships, and research. Fair use is used permitted by copyright statute that might otherwise be infringing. All comments are alleged in our opinion and for entertainment purposes only. Thanks for being here. Thanks for supporting the channel. Like, comment, and continue to hit the like button as you exit. Everyone focus on healthy, safe relationships. Have a great day. Goodbye.